when I auditioned with her, I just thought this has got to be the girl. This has got to be the one. In fact, I told her that, I told the producers if they didn't hire you, because I'd seen several girls' tapes and a few in person, that I wasn't going to do the show. She said, really? I said, no. Are you crazy?
Hi, Jean. Hi,
Bowen. Nice to meet you.
This is great. I've been so looking forward to talking to you.
Thank you. Me too.
I wanted to ask you about hacks, and I've heard you talk about how the idea of playing a stand-up comedian was daunting, intimidating. Was there anything in the script that drew you to the project in spite of that fear, or did the fear sort of help?
I always thought it'd be fun to be a stand-up comic, but I also thought it would be incredibly terrifying. I get to do it for pretend, you know.
Sure.
The audience that I have has been paid to laugh at me, so.
But in some ways that's comforting, right?
Oh yeah.
The fear of failure isn't quite as present, although I'm sure maybe it is.
Totally. No, I remember a couple of scenes getting kind of nervous before I went out on stage, even though most of the time I didn't have any audience at all. It was just the crew. But when we did have a little bit of an audience, I started getting nervous. And I thought, why are you nervous? They didn't have to buy a ticket. and you can always say, oh, I'm sorry, stop. Can we do that again?
Sure. I mean, did that have any parallel to your theater experience at all? Or was it completely foreign, completely different?
No, it's very similar in a way because it's, you've got that audience right there. But at least when you're doing a play, you're very rarely addressing the audience.
Yes.
The thing with a comedian is, because if you're doing a play and it's supposed to be really funny and they're not laughing, it's not as uncomfortable as if you are a stand-up and you're supposed to be funny and you said a joke and there was no response. It's painfully obvious that you're failing.
Deborah, calm down.
Oh, what do you care? You own the place. The service sucks.
Great.
Where's my doggy bag?
Okay, all right.
I'll take his too.
Okay.
And the fork.
It was a ball, you know. But I'm just so jealous of you being on SNL. Oh my God. I mean, were you always funny when you were a kid?
I was not. I feel like I needed to have that identity sort of like conferred upon me by other children growing up, where it was this thing where I just moving around a lot. You just had to quickly adapt, and you had to just get people. You just had to really charm offensive. You had to really get people to like you really quickly, and then that was. And then I think by the fourth week of the fourth grade, a girl at recess had said, "Oh, Bowen, you're funny." And so and then I just sort of cosmically like took that on and was just like, I guess this is part of my personality, which is probably a little cloying.
No, it's great.
Going through your life thinking you're funny.
No, it's great because but it's true. I mean, you humor can get you out of a lot of uncomfortable situations, you know, and also it feels great making people laugh, you know. The same way it feels great to laugh. I mean, I love to laugh, you know, but...
Who doesn't?
Bagels? Why is everything 25% different here?
In Quebec, we say it tastes better with the big hole.
Yes, lick the cream cheese out of the big hole. Since I'm young, I ate the big white hole this way.
Jean-Greg, stick your face in it and go to town on that big hole.
Did your parents think you were funny?
They had heard through other sources that I was funny, like just at a parent-teacher conference. But they had no like gauge for like what like, you know, Western humor was, and so I would never bring home like a joke or a funny story or anything like that. And so the moment I decided to pursue quote unquote comedy or quote unquote pursue was very confusing to them because they were like, are you funny? And I was like, in another language I am, yes, because we speak Mandarin at home. So that was that.
That's right. Marty asked me my range. I said I can sit and I can sit down. And the people who went to these talks, they were children. They'd ask me, should I be a writer? Should I be a filmmaker? I say, no, you should be something useful. Be a piece of melon wrapped in prosciutto.
But what was it like working with Paul and Lucia and Jen? Like 3 people who I think are...
The Three Musketeers. I just adore them. I mean, they couldn't be smarter, funnier, kinder. We don't work long, brutal days. I'm home for dinner every night. You know, Lucia, I mean, it's just been a dream job. Literally, if I could have described my dream job, this is it.
So you're a fan? I mean, of course. Would I be here if I wasn't?
What's your favorite joke of mine?
Man, you know, that's so hard.
Well, it shouldn't be. I've written over 30,000. Just pick one. The role just seemed to have everything. I mean, you see her personal pain, but you also get to see her comic side. You get to see her. I mean, the most fun, of course, is my getting to abuse Hannah Einbinder's character all the time. That's the most fun. And also, too, I mean, the rest of the cast is a dream. You know, our producer writers, and then Michael Schur from The Office. I mean, if nothing else, besides their talent, they're just incredibly nice people. And to me, that's really important. I don't ever want to work with someone who's not pleasant and kind, and because there's no reason for that not to be, you know, there's no reason to have an uncomfortable set, you know.
I agree. I think this is my favorite show about comedy that I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and it's just because I think it's because it's so honest about the way comedy is made and the way it you're supposed to perform ease and confidence and likability, but the lead up to that finished product on stage is something that is just like rife with struggle and suffering and pressure and all of these things. And then just to watch Deborah Vance and Ava sort of arrive at jokes together, meet in the middle from their different points of view. I mean, it's kind of incredible because I feel like it says something about this intergenerational conversation that's been happening, I mean, for all of show business, but especially now that, like, I don't think we've seen. And what was it like to sort of figuring that out with Hannah?
Well, I mean, we hit the jackpot with her because she's never really done much acting, if at all, before. I mean, she's very experienced, even though she's only 25, the little pisher. She's been doing stand-up comedy for several years. And when I auditioned with her, I just thought this has got to be the girl. This has got to be the one. In fact, I told her that I told the producers if they didn't hire you, because I'd seen several girls' tapes and a few in person, that I wasn't going to do the show. She said, really? I said, no. Are you crazy?
And that's the perfect way to sort of establish that off camera, that dynamic thing.
Well, I mean, I did hesitate for a second before I said it. I thought, oh, is this too mean? I thought, nah, she's a comic. She'll be fine. Of course, she roared. Yeah. Thank God.
I would have to say that your TV show is my personal favorite thing that you've ever done.
You mean my sitcom from 1973? You've seen it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen clips.
Clips. Wonderful. You know, I don't know, we just seem to have this, it's one of those things that you just kind of get lucky, you know. We just had an instant rapport, even though our backgrounds are very different. Our lifestyles are different. Certainly our ages are very different. Just kind of fell in love with each other. And, you know, we send each other awful text messages all the time and everything. I just adore her. You know?
That's perfect.
But it is. That's the fun part of the show, is watching that relationship evolve and change. And they go through a lot this first season, real ups and downs. But that's the fun of it. I mean, they told me from the beginning, they said, this isn't really about your stand-up routines necessarily. It's about more the behind the mask, you know.
Well, Speaking of the producers of Hacks, you worked with Jen Statsky, Lucia Agnello, Paul W. Downs. Lucia directed an episode of Nora from Queens, the show that I'm on, and it was the summer before I got moved from a writer to the cast of SNL.
Is that how it works often, that the writers become cast members? Or, I mean, you always hear that people just audition, and so you didn't audition.
I did audition. I auditioned to potentially be on the cast, but then, so I'd done 4 rounds of auditions over the course of like a year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then before I got hired as a writer, I had met with Lauren in LA, and he had said that he liked what he saw, but that he hired me to write. I took the job very enthusiastically, sort of learned how the sausage was made as a writer. Because as a writer, you have to produce your own sketches if they make it onto the show, and so you do sort of, it's boot camp, and you learn things so quickly. So by the time he called me to move me to cast, he said on that phone call that day that he was like, this was my plan the whole time, was to make sure that if I put you out there, you knew how to navigate things, because you are going to be scrutinized in a different way than some other cast members because of your race and because of your sexuality and because of your sensibility. And so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't putting you out there without a paddle.
That was nice.
So that was his rationale, yeah.
Well, that's nice to hear about him. That's very kind.
It is nice.
What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, and even hearing you talk about working with Hannah is so heartwarming, because, you know, there would be, growing up, I thought all of showbiz was going to be like All About Eve or something. And that, you know, that like if you're like an upstart coming in, that you're going to be like sort of brought down so low and all these things. And I'm just like, oh, but this is a show that is about finding that whatever sliver of common ground there can be between two people who have nothing in common except for their love of comedy.
Yeah. I mean, we even laughed about, you know, because she always, in the show, you have to have her dressed way down, and she's kind of dressed like a typical kind of millennial or whatever generation she is. I don't know. Is she a millennial at 25? I don't know where the cutoffs are.
Zillennial? I don't know.
Zillennial. But she's always wearing those big Doc Martens, you know. And
Yep.
One day we were standing next to each other. I said, "Look at our feet next to each other." And I was wearing some Ivanka Trump sparkly high heels, you know, open toe, and our shoes together. I just said, "This is hilarious." I said, "This is like the whole show right here." And she looked down and she said, "This should be the poster." I said, "Oh, that's genius." And so we've been begging them to. They did take a couple pictures of our feet the other day, so I'm hoping at some point.
Oh, sure. And then the foot fetishists will love it.
Well, we always want that group, don't we?
Always.
So were you terrified the first time you did a sketch?
I was terrified.
Which one was it?
Terrified. Well, technically it was when I was still a writer, and then Sandra Oh was the host. And I had worked with her. I wrote for her on the Golden Globes when she hosted with Andy Samberg in 2019.
Oh.
And we met there, and it was just this lovely, lovely, fortuitous meeting. And then when she hosted, Streeter Seidel and Brian Tucker, 2 writers at SNL, wrote this sketch where she comes in as Kim Jong-un's translator to Vladimir Putin.
Yes. I saw that. That was hysterical. I didn't know that was your first one. Oh my God, that was hilarious.
Thank you. That was my first time on camera, and then I remember I hadn't had contacts at that point, but they had to switch out my glasses, obviously, for costume glasses, and they couldn't put my prescription in them in time. No. So I wasn't even reading the cue cards. I didn't even know when I was supposed to come in, and so I sent, like, on a sensory level, I was already inhibited, and then just going in, just thinking, oh my God, like it's just so strange to like perceive yourself on camera in real time, you know, on this television show that gets, you know, aired live with like a 5-second delay, but it's still live, and so it was really disorienting. But then as soon as dress rehearsal was done, I knew where, you know, where my marks were and where I was supposed to go and what I was supposed to do. So by the time it was the air show, the broadcast, I was like, okay, I got this. And it was crazy, but I was so nervous.
Oh God. Well, you know, but see, that's one of the wonderful things about that show. Why people love that show so much, besides the fact that it's 99% of the time falling down funny. But sometimes you really feel like you're watching like a high school play gone wrong or something, and it's so much fun.
It's so much fun. I mean, like, I think my favorite part of working there is like the quick changes, which like you only get in theater.
Russia still have much influence over America. We have internet trolls and many other things.
Wow, 아주 멋져.
Oh, glorious leader says, very impressive.
But you know, I have to say to you, on a more serious note, speaking of my youngest, I would like to thank you personally for speaking out against the violence against Asian peoples that has been going on.
Look, I'm just a comedian. I don't have the answers, but I'm not just looking for them online. I'm looking around me.
I just this week got Twitter for the first time. I'm a dinosaur. I have no social media. My publicist insisted I do this. So.
You're the better for it.
But I know that you have been doing that, and I thank you because my daughter is from China, and we adopted her when she was 10 months old. And I do worry, you know, lately. I've been worried a little bit. But so thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. I mean, I'm so touched to hear you say that. And you know, it's funny because I had this vulnerability hangover the next day, and like I think the week after I did that piece, because it was just me as myself talking, trying to thread some jokes and trying to add some levity to this really bleak, terrible situation that it's just so hard to make light of any of it. So that the thing that sort of made it so nice is just hearing people react to it in ways that I would never have expected. That's so kind of you. Thank you so much, Jean.
No, thank you.
Well, Jean, I have just had such pleasure watching you over the years, but especially recently with Fargo and with Watchmen, especially. I thought, wow, you know, Silk Spectre, Laurie in the graphic novel was such an interesting character, but then the way you portrayed her, I thought, added like multiple layers, dimensions to her in ways that I didn't expect. What was it like playing her?
Oh, that was such a great experience. I was sort of shot from guns because they hired me 2 days before I started. So I'll be really honest. I have Sigourney Weaver to thank for turning down the role. So thank you, Sigourney.
And I'm thanking Sigourney Weaver for turning it down too. Okay, great.
And I knew nothing about the graphic novel. I knew nothing about the story at all. But I started reading the pilot and I said, oh my God, this is amazing. But it was an amazing experience because I'd never really done that science fiction genre. And the fact that Damon was able to use that tragic part of our history that almost no one knew about, you know, that was what was so shocking, that I had never heard of the Tulsa Massacre. I'd never heard of it, and that made me feel terrible. But it was incredibly eye-opening, and the fact that he was able to use that as the springboard to tie it in with this iconic piece of science fiction was absolutely staggeringly brilliant.
Yes, there we go. I feel like with Laurie, I think you do this with so many of your characters in different ways, but with Laurie, you are able to perform a confidence and a likability that is then maybe on a separate strand tied with an emotional distance, not a callousness. But I'm talking about this in relation to Deborah Vance. I feel like they're in the same thread almost. I mean, what are you adjusting in each of these performances?
Well, there are some similarities between those two women in particular, in the sense that they are both living kind of lonely lives. They think that they're very successful, and they sort of enjoy intimidating people. They think they're in control, but they're both actually extremely lonely, and they're both carrying a torch for a man who they will never get back. But other than that, they're very, very different in the sense of I mean, Deborah is much more chaotic and brittle and much more volatile and unpredictable than Lori. I mean, that's one of the things I loved about the character of Deborah when I read it, was that she's so different with different people. She has a different relationship with everybody in her life. But at the same time, it's written so well that it just all seems to make sense. She can be so mean and dismissive and rude, and she can be, as we'll see more and more throughout the season, she can be incredibly kind and thoughtful. She can be such a cheapskate and also unbelievably over-the-top generous. Like when she gives her Rolls Royces to Poppy, her blackjack dealer, whenever she gets a new Rolls Royce. And she's just kind of all over the place. But there's something, hopefully, that you still like about her.
You know, this isn't even about the pepper shaker.
It is most certainly about the pepper shaker.
No, I think you're just butthurt about that billboard, and you're taking it out on me.
Ooh, great psychoanalysis. Oh, I get it. You're a therapist. That explains it. You're certainly not a writer.
Yeah, how would you know?
She's incredibly likable because by trade she is supposed to perform likability as a comedian.
Oh yeah, people. It's like you want to be loved. It's like I look at myself and you say, "Why do you become an actor?" It's like, well, my excuse is I was the second of four, so it's like I didn't get enough attention. It's like, hey, look at me, love me. I actually didn't feel that way. I always thought I was my dad's favorite, but but yeah, it again. Oh, that thing of making somebody laugh. It's almost. Well,
it's
I won't say
intoxicating.
it, but it's. But one of my favorite things that I've seen you do was the Iceberg being interviewed, which was so off the wall and hilarious, and you were so deeply sincere as the Iceberg. The Iceberg's inner monologue was crystal clear. Did you write that? It was absolutely hysterical.
Thank you, Jean. No one's described it as sincere yet, and so that's huge.
No, very kind of offended at the way it had been treated by history.
Yes. And who wouldn't be for over 100 years?
And also, at the same time, you're so sincere, but you look like some crazy fan at a football game.
That's what it is. I was like, I don't know what this resembles in real life, but it's like a college football game. Yes, absolutely. The colors are white and blue.
And I was looking at this and I was like, oh my God, they're gonna make a movie about this.
It sounds like you think you're the victim here.
Well, everyone's talking about me. No one's talking about the water!
I wrote that with one of our head writers, Anna Dresden, who I've known since college. She's a very old friend of mine, and she's a genius. And she texted me in February. She said, maybe for the April 10th show, because the Titanic sinking is around that time, the anniversary is around that time, you come on Weekend Update as the iceberg that sank the Titanic, and you're just really annoyed that people still associate you with that. And so we vomited out this draft, in a few hours that was overlong. We were like, this is so indulgent and whatever, but let's go for it. And then we did it address, and it got a decent response. We're like, oh, that kind of worked. Interesting. And then it got picked for air. And then at that point, we're like, let's just let go and let God. And then we did it at air, and the audience was even more on board. And we were just like, okay, wow, how did we stick the landing on that? And so it was just a lovely surprise that it even happened.
It's like you guys do summer stock every week.
It does feel like that. Wow, you're right.
It.
What did the autopsy say? They iceberged it? No, they drowned, bitch. That's not me. That's water.
Jean, it was such a pleasure and an honor to talk to you.
Thank you. You too.